It's the silence, followed by the noise. It's the welcoming brew around the table.
And the pounding adrenaline of your first call out.
From a plume of water bursting from the ground,
to being soaked in sweat from the heat.
It's successfully planning an event at short notice, and the pride of pulling on a shirt for the first time.
Today, it's the panic on people's faces.
Tomorrow, it's the support from the communities we serve.
It's feeling anxious about starting a new role, only to be supported and inspired by amazing colleagues.
It's comforting families who've lost loved ones.
And heartfelt thanks from those we have saved.
It's the gravity of shutting down an unsafe business to turning around the lives of vulnerable people.
It's the driving grotto that makes Christmas that little bit brighter.
And the humour that gets you through stressful times.
From training that pushes you to your limits.
Making positive changes and challenging the status quo.
It's feeling excited, included and exhilarated.
Yet having the space to feel vulnerable and exhausted too.
It's the memories that stick with you for life, the good ones and the bad.
It's a great feeling, serving your community.
It's great to be part of something bigger than yourself.
And it's great that no day is the same.
It's all of these things that make us who we are.
It's all these things that make us Nottinghamshire Fire and Rescue Service.
This is me.
This is us.
And
This is our story.
Proud to be rated good by HMIC FRS.
Welcome to the first meeting of the new Community Safety Committee at the Fire Authority. We've not all met yet, so I'm Richard Butler, I'm the new chairman of this, so I'm sure you'll be gentlemen. And it might be helpful actually for us all if we maybe just go around the table saying who we are. So, as I say, I'm Richard Butler, I'm the chairman of this committee. I'm the county councillor for Copgrave, in Rushcliffe, and have been on the Fire Authority. Well, actually, I can't remember. It must be 2 or 3 years, I think. So it's a good group. It's a good thing to be on, and so hopefully we'll all be able to work well together for the good of the authority and the residents and people and businesses in Nottinghamshire. So I'm Richard. Shall we go to Damien next?
Thank you, Chair. It's Damien West, Assistant Chief Fire Officer for Service Delivery. So I oversee prevention, protection and response, and the responsible principal officer for the Community Safety Committee.
Good morning, my name is Tom Archer, I'm the Head of Prevention, Protection and Fire Investigation.
Morning, Tom Staples, I'm the Response Group Manager for the North.
Nick Rain, Councillor based at Nottingham City.
Samina, Councillor for London and Luton, and this is my second year on the community safety.
You're the expert then.
Oh really? I won't say that.
Good morning everybody, I'm Jodie Stoll, I'm the County Councillor for the Calverton Division.
Good morning, I'm Wendy McCatch, and I'm the County Councillor for Arnold North Division.
Good morning everyone, I'm Councillor Jim Vernon, lead group for my team, and I'm looking forward to this.
Cassian, Fire Governance Officer.
Good, super. And what a good thing we all got name badges in front of us, because we'll never remember, will we? So before we get into the main items on the agenda, we just need to have one extra thing, which is a changed membership report, isn't it, Catherine? So
yes, Chair, it's just to note that Councillor Patel has been replaced by Councillor Nick Rain.
Okay, thank you. So official welcome to Councillor Rain. Not that you're new, but...
it's about 4 or 5 years.
Yes. So, do we have any apologies? I don't think we have. So well done, full turnout. Declarations of interests. Anyone need to declare anything? No. So we have the minutes of the previous meeting. Now, obviously, most of us weren't here. That was held on the 14th of March. But Nick and Samina, you were here, weren't you?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
would you like to sort of just confirm the minutes?
Yeah.
Or make any points?
Accurate, yeah, no matters arising. Okay.
Good. So that takes us into the main main item on the agenda, which is the Service Delivery Performance Report, which we've got in front of us. And we have, at the end of this, a recommendation which is shown on page 3 of the report, that we scrutinise and draw assurance of the performance of service delivery. We agree to receive a focus report on reducing unwanted fire signals at a future committee meeting, and we note the update of progress against the Manchester Arena inquiry recommendations. So, Damien, are you going to talk us through this?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'll do an introduction and I'll hand over to Tom, who will take us through the detail. So the Service Delivery Performance Report is our standing agenda item and really focus of the Community Safety Committee in terms of the delivery of our services within prevention, protection and response to communities. So we present to members in a quarterly format. That's how we gather our data. That does, as with today's date, mean that some of the data is slightly older. So this report is covering the 1st of January to the 31st of March 2025. So we will report on those elements there. We will cover the report. There's quite a lot of detail there, and Tom will take us through the detail. We won't read word for word, but if councillors do have any questions about any of the content whatsoever, then please, we're more than happy to take questions or provide further clarity on that as well. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Tom, and we will take you through the detail of the report.
Thanks, Damien. Thank you, Chair. So I will be covering the first part of the report, which is the response elements of the report, over section 2.1 through to 2.19. I likely will read quite a lot verbatim because there's a lot of data and detail in my report. But if at any point you've got anything that you don't understand or you want to clarify or ask questions, please just
do so. So I'll make a start. So section 2.1 is an overall number of incidents attended during 24-25, which accounts for 10,910 incidents attended by ourselves. This is a 3% increase on the same period, 23-24. We mainly contributed this to an incident in weather-related incidents. That's heat-related in summer and flood-related in winter, as an overview. 2.2, figure 1 shows a monthly comparison of incidents since 2022-23. Whilst monthly incident numbers have been relatively consistent, it is worth noting a couple of exceptions, which I've just alluded to. There were significant increases in incidents in July and August 22 due to the extreme temperatures of that summer. And similarly, the hot, dry starts of this year have seen an increase in grass and outdoor fires in the March period, up 216% and 100% respectively compared to 23-24. We do see, like I say, a massive increase in incidents generally when the weather gets hot, and the hot, dry start this year has absolutely confirmed that. Following the summer of 2022, it is worth just noting that the service did invest about £100,000 in our response to sort of grass and wildfire related incidents, and I'm happy to confirm that we've now got 4 new vehicles available to support the hot weather incidents. Call that basically our small fires unit, and they are pumping units, smaller than fire engines, that we put on the back of pickup trucks, for want of a better description, which are much more available to get into hard to reach places like forestry and grassland. So we're confident that will vastly improve our response to these kinds of incidents moving forward. 2.3.
Sorry, a question from the hot weather related incidents. Are they typically arson?
It's difficult to put an exact cause because of the number of them. Obviously, when the hot, dry weather comes, the grass and the land is dry. So I wouldn't say they were all arson. We get a lot of accidental grass fires. Arson does account for some of them, certainly. I don't have the figures, the breakdown of figures, but I can get that if you do want that, Councillor. But generally speaking, I would say they were accidental grass fires.
So those 4 new will they're going to cover whole Nottingham and Nottinghamshire?
Yeah, we've got one based in Tuxford, one in Warsop, one in Eastwood and one in Eastleigh, so there's a spread throughout the county.
Right.
They're available now to be mobilised, like I say, to any incident essentially, but ultimately they're designed for small grass and woodland fires, which accounted for a big proportion of the incidents we attended in the very hot summer of 22. And likewise in March this year. Obviously, with the weather being as it is, we're anticipating another busy period in the next few weeks and months.
Is that a grant or was that from the budget?
So,
that 100k, was that a grant or was that from the budget?
That was from existing budget, yeah. So that's been completely spent now, so that project works out pretty much on budget, and we're really pleased with the results of that project. So. Okay. Section 2.3 shows a breakdown of incident types attended over the last 12 months. That can be seen in figure 2, which is the graph below 2.3. Typically, as I say, fires are lower in the autumn and winter, peak in the spring and remain relatively high throughout the summer. False alarms are averaged 432 per month, peaking in October last year at 483. Special service calls have remained relatively consistent throughout the year, averaging 241 per month. There's quite a wide variety of incident types that fall into special service calls. They can range from things like lift rescues through to road traffic collisions fall under that category. So it's quite a wide-ranging group of incident types. And you can see from that graph that March 25 did see a spike in an unusual spike in fires, which is probably earlier than we would anticipate for a spring period, but the weather was particularly warm in March. Moving on to 2.4, figure 3 shows a breakdown of incidents by district in 24-25. As expected, the City of Nottingham experienced the most incidents with just over 3,000 and Rushcliffe the least with 780. And that, just worth noting, that graph covers all incident types, not just the grass and outdoor fire that we've been speaking about. 2.5 shows a breakdown of incidents by priority type. Definitions are below. So we classify incidents into severity definitions. P1 incidents pose the most immediate threat to human life or pose a risk of severe human injury, where intervention has the potential to save life or reduce risk. So typically that might be something like a house fire with people trapped inside. We would classify that as a P1 incident. P2 incidents pose a serious hazard and high risk threat to the environment, society or property, and a fire and rescue service immediate response. And then moving down the scale to P3 incidents pose a potential hazard to human life, environment, society, property or heritage, or incidents which pose a confirmed low hazard to human life. And the grass fire type incidents would fall into that P3 type incident bracket. Road traffic collisions, depending on whether people were trapped or not, could fall into P1 or P2 if nobody was trapped. And that information is it's ascertained at the time of call, and our control centre will then classify the severity of the incident, and the response may just change slightly. So the predetermined attendance for P1 is higher than a predetermined attendance for P2. 2.6. Key community risk management plan target is that all emergency incidents will be attended on average within 8 minutes, which equates to 480 seconds from the time the first appliance is mobilised to the time they sort of press the button to say they've arrived at that incident. During quarter 4, the average attendance time has been 7 minutes and 51 seconds, and this contributed to the annual attendance time for 24-25 being below target at 7 minutes 58 seconds. So we're really pleased about that. That's a key target that we try and hit, and we make a great deal of effort, both in control and with our response crews, to hit that target.
And that's something that's really reassuring to the public, of course, because the public at a time of crisis have made the call, and they want you there as quickly as possible, and that's really reassuring.
Excellent. I'll come on to control later, but we've made a lot of effort with our control staff to make their call handling more efficient, so that the time from when the phone is answered to the time that our appliances are mobilised is as slow as possible as well.
Yeah, I was smart when you said seconds. I thought seconds, and then we go back to the old adage, seconds can save lives.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Yeah. 2.7, moving on to some data related to our on-call crews. In April 2024, the service introduced a new dual employment policy, which aimed to ensure that those who fulfil both a whole-time and on-call role with ourselves comply with the working time regulations and have sufficient periods of rest. This policy requires those that are on dual employment to have mandatory periods of unavailability from their on-call role immediately prior to their whole-time shifts. So that might be someone who's whole-time at Highfields, for example, who then lives in Tuxford. They were immediately going back to Tuxford and booking on call. But for their welfare, what we enforce now is a period of rest between coming off nights onto their on-call role, for their own benefit, really. But we did anticipate that the natural result of that is that station that they're going to an on-call station may see a fall in availability, and that has been the case. Just there at the end of 2.7, anticipated consequence of the dual employment policy is that there will be an impact to on-call availability. 2.8 shows some more detail about on-call availability in 24-25, which averaged 83.8%. As anticipated, like I've just alluded to, this is below the service target of 85% and the 86.5% availability, which was achieved in 23-24. So whilst there is a drop, it is only a slight drop. In the previous committee report, it was highlighted that, as expected, the introduction of 3 new on-call contract levels in April 2025 and the continued endeavours of the on-call support team to increase recruitment, improve retention, will return availability to target levels in 25 and 26. So the introduction of 3 new on-call levels for contract levels, essentially we used to ask for a minimum of 84 hours, which was quite a big commitment for some people.
A month?
A week. Yeah, which is quite a big commitment for somebody in primary employment. So the introduction of more flexible contracts, so we now ask for a minimum 30-hour contract. But what we try and analyse is where they can give those 30 hours. So where the pump is traditionally unavailable during the daytime when people are in their primary employment, we're now trying to attract people in who can cover that daytime period, even if they can only offer us 30 hours a week. And that has the potential to keep that appliance available when traditionally it may have been off the run. Moving on to 2.9, figure 6 shows a breakdown of on-call availability by station in 24-25. Whilst Walsall Hucknall were very close to providing 100% availability. We do acknowledge that Blythe, Harworth and Southwell have fallen below 70% availability. And we are focusing our efforts on those stations to try and increase availability, and they have shown significant improvement in Q4 with availability of 67 and 71% respectively.
What's the underlying cause for that, do you know?
There are many factors that feed into on-call recruitment and retention, but if you take a town like Southwell, for example, it's kind of an island on its own, and the number of people that we can attract is quite low in some points. Just wait for that. So typically, the sort of demographic age range that we get for recruitment and retention into on-call stations is sort of between about 18 and 40. Mm-hmm. And we do ask for people who live within 5 minutes of the station. So for every sort of factor we're putting into that, we are narrowing that band of people that could possibly apply for that station. So a town like Southwell, you're looking at only a few thousand people that could even potentially apply. Mm-hmm. And then they may not want to. It's quite a wealthy town. You know, what we're asking is quite a big commitment in some parts, which is part of the reason we've tried to be more flexible with our contractual requests away from 84 hours and maybe down to something like 30 hours in a bid to try and attract more people.
And how many people do you need to have an appliance active? 4 presumably? Or?
Well, minimum of 4, but
yeah.
Most on-call stations are around about a dozen to 15 people that they have a pool of people that they call on. So we do try and maintain around that number, but we don't have a set limit of how many people we will attract into a station within reason, obviously. Yeah. But on average, I would say, if I had to put a number on it, we're looking at around about 15 is the target.
15, yeah. Okay.
Section 2.10 then, so to provide a longer term overview, figure 7 below shows on-call availability per completed quarter of the last 5 years. The high availability experienced in 2021 was attributed mainly to people's increased availability during COVID. Obviously, with more people at home, they were able to offer us more availability. And similarly, the trend of lower availability in Q2 is associated with holiday periods and a lack of availability for on-call personnel. We do see availability follow a pattern of holidays, you know, between half terms and summer. Traditionally, availability drops off where people are booking annual leave. But what we do to try and counter that is support these stations using our on-call support team staff who analyse on a daily basis really where on-call availability is particularly low, and they will just go and work out of that station to boost numbers to keep the pump available wherever possible. Section 2.11, it gives some more detail about hold time availability and on-call. So hold time appliances can become unavailable due to mechanical faults, servicing, insufficient crewing levels, replenishment of contaminated PPE, out of county training or crew welfare, where an appliance has been taken off the run for in-county training or prevention activities, not deemed to be unavailable as it could be recalled if required. The service targets all hold time duty system availability to be 98% of appliances to be available all the time. Collectively, hold time duty system appliances have been available 99.4% of the time in 24-25. And Tango 03 Papa 1, so that's London Road, and Stockhill Tango 20 Papa 1 have fallen just below the 98% availability target, as on occasion they are taken off the run in line with our degradation policy to support crewing levels elsewhere. So essentially, how we use our two pump stations is if we have got crewing shortfalls in other stations, we sometimes remove the second pump within those stations and send those personnel to other stations to boost their crewing numbers, and that's why you see a drop off in the second appliances at those 2 stations. 2.13, 24-25, the services special appliances such as the aerial ladder platforms, special rescue units and command support units have been available for 99.9% of the time, which we're really pleased with.
Can't get much better than that.
No, we will try. Can't be that much, but we will try. And the final part of my report gives some detail about the performance of our joint fire control function. So 2.14, key part of the service's ongoing commitment to ensure resources are mobilised to emergency incidents in a timely manner. And as part of that functional collaboration agreement between Nottinghamshire and Derbyshire Fire and Rescue Service, and the ongoing monitoring of joint control, 3 performance measures are monitored. 2.15 shows the first joint control metric, which is the percentage of 999 calls answered within 7 seconds. The target for this is 96% of all calls. Figure 8 shows performance over the last 8 completed quarters. And whilst the performance in quarter 4 was on target, in 24-25 overall performance was slightly below target with 95% of calls answered within 7 seconds. 2.16 shows the second joint control metric, the average call handling times, which I alluded to earlier for P1 and P2 incidents. The target for these is within 86 seconds, and that's from the time. That's basically the time the operator spends on the call. Figure 9 shows performance over the last 8 completed quarters. Performance in 24-25 was well below target at 73 seconds. And that is really as a result of the hard work that Control have put in to try and make their call handling much more efficient and get that information out of people as quickly as possible, with really targeted questioning of incident information, and then to mobilise the appliances as quickly as possible. 2.17 is the final joint control metric, which is the mobilisation system availability. The system is classed as being unavailable for a variety of reasons, including the loss of officer page alerting. So whilst our stations are mobilised through the main control system, and the station lights and sirens go off, officers like ourselves can be anywhere in the county and we just carry a pager, and that's how we're mobilised. So if that goes unavailable for any reason, that feeds into this metric. So we have experienced a few problems with officer paging over the last couple of quarters, and we're working really hard with our supplier Sistel to fix those technical bugs. I just want to offer some reassurance really that we're showing 2.8, that has not led to a significant drop in appliance mobilisation, which is the most important. This really relates to officer mobilisations, and we do have backup systems in place such as telephone calls, airwave radio, that kind of thing. So it's not a fail-safe.
When this Sistel system goes offline, is it offline for everybody or is it individual cases?
Well, relating specifically to officer paging, it tends to be the whole officer cohort that don't receive officer paging alerts. But where that happens, it's really obvious to Control. They always back up that with a phone call to the officer to say, did you receive that alert? Invariably, that has led to a slight delay on occasion of officer mobilisation.
Is this a new system?
Sistel is not a new system. No, it's a French supplier. There are not many suppliers in the market. They supply a lot of fire services throughout the country and throughout Europe. And we've got a good relationship with Sistel. We do fix bugs pretty quickly, to be honest.
Are the other services having the same issue?
It's a national problem. It's not just.
I think I know Nick wants to come in as well, but Damien, I think you just want to add something.
Something that we can cover at the end of the meeting is we're currently in the process of replacing the mobilising system. So there's a replacement mobilising system project. It's a multi-million-pound investment which will come into fruition next year, and that will address some of the system stability issues that we've had, and that will also be in front of members a lot over the next 12 months in terms of that process as well.
And also, as time goes on, a lot of this more detailed information will come out as in future meetings and training sessions and so on. So it's a good question there. Nick, did you want to come in as well?
Yeah, sorry, I think some of it's been covered. I mean, obviously I was looking in terms of the pager system in 218, there's quite a significant issue, isn't it, that you said we're looking into. And that is a concern, isn't it? And we've had previous talks about, Sistel and the system. When I first came to the Fire Authority, I was thinking pages, that is really, old school, isn't it? You'd think there'd be something else. I'm not been trying to be facetious, but you'd think there'd be another mechanism.
We have looked at, through Fire Service Rota, which is our sort of scheduling software, the option of being alerted through an app. That's formed part of the replacement mobilising system project. We will stick with pages, but we'll get better pages ultimately is the outcome of that.
Yeah.
I want to assure you that even when the pages fail, there is a backup system. We can get text messages. We mobilise somebody on call through WhatsApp. That's a well-used way of mobilising. So there are fail-safes within the system that mean that if Sistel does go offline for any reason, Control are able still to mobilise us.
Right.
Can I ask him a couple of things if that's all right, Chair?
Sorry, sir.
Can I ask him a couple of questions? If that's
Yes,
okay?
of course you can. Yeah.
Okay. In terms of this, I mean, there's quite a lot of good news in terms of availability and so on. Obviously, for colleagues who are new here, we've had problems in certain places. We talked about it, Lydith, Harworth and Southall particularly. And Southall's been a significant problem now for some time, hasn't it? I mean,
it has, and I've just got some figures in preparation for that. We are interviewing 5 people at Southall in the most recent round of recruitment, so that's higher than the other 2 stations. There's a Blythe 4 and Harworth. We've just got 1 person to interview, which I think demonstrates how difficult it is to attract people into the on-call sometimes. So yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at figures for 2024 recruitment last year. We added 4 firefighters to Blythe, 2 to Harworth, and we didn't attract anybody into Southwell last year at all. So with the 5 people this year, we're quite hopeful that that will increase. And 5 people, even if we get, say, 3 of those people into Southwell, that will be a significant boost to their availability, which we're quite hopeful about.
Yeah, it's been a sticking thing. And also in terms of 216 attendance times, just looking at the trend, August and November 24, it went over a bit, fairly significantly, about a few seconds. Do you know why that is? That holidays or is that the half-term thing?
There are various reasons that could feed into that. There has been a state of sort of replacement of staff within control. We've had quite a few new starters. That could account for that. Obviously, if they get more experience, they'll get more efficient at taking those calls. But I can certainly look into more detail about why that might be for those particular periods, Councillor, if you would like.
Well, it gets better afterwards, doesn't it? So I'm just thinking that's to be positive about it. I've had like a blip, and then there's an improvement afterwards.
Yeah.
But thanks, anyway.
Councillor, sorry. Just to come back on the on-call one, something that I spoke to the Chair about was particularly the on-call. As many years as you've been on the Fire Authority, is a continual area of focus. I think we are one of the highest performing in the country, but given that, we're still below where we want to be. So it shows the aspiration around what we want to do. One of the suggestions was that we'll bring a paper to a future committee meeting around the specific work that we're doing with the on-call, just to provide that assurance, but also offer that scrutiny for yourselves in terms of what we're doing and any more we can. And I think we'd always welcome the support of members in local communities, because I think it's proven nationally people still don't even understand that there is an on-call fire service. They assume every fire engine that turns up is whole time sat there waiting to be called. So I think that there's definitely work we can still do in that area.
Yeah, spreading the word, isn't it? Okay, so that covers everything on the response, unless anyone's got any other questions on that. So we'll move on to community safety and engagement.
Thank you, Chair. So I'll be taking you through the report for community safety and engagement, which is the new name for our prevention team, because we had a restructure. So community safety and engagement prevention, and I'll move on to our protection activities. I've put a lot of detail into this report, which I make no apologies for. I want you to have that information, but it does make it quite a lengthy report, so I will just highlight certain points, but I am really keen to take questions if you want me to expand on anything. Certainly if I miss a point that you want me to highlight, then just let me know.
And you're okay for us to interrupt if you need.
100%, yeah, 100%. So I'll obviously start at 2.19 in terms of the service completing our target for safe and well visits in 24-25, which is we did 15,207 against a target of 15,000. It's a really key CRMP metric for us that we achieved. Obviously, that's working within the community safety engagement team, but obviously significantly with our response colleagues who deliver a significant portion of those visits to the community. So 2.21 of the safe and well visits delivered in Q4, specifically 52% were to those over the age of 65 and 45% were to those who identified as having a disability. So mobility issues and disability are key characteristics of the service's Charlie profile, which identifies individuals who are at high risk of fire in their home. And these percentages are slightly lower than previous quarters due to the high volume of safe and well visits undertaken through our data intelligence and community engagement, which is DICE. And these events focus on low smoke alarm ownership, 775 visits undertaken in Q4. So if I just move you on to 2.25, unless there's any points you want to raise on those other ones that I've missed.
Well, just an observation, really. I mean, I think when you look at over 15,000 engagements with vulnerable people at risk, I think that's
it's a phenomenal achievement, and it's
celebrated. In just 1 year, that's no mean achievement, is it?
I think to put that into some context as well, Joe, in 2018-19 we attended about 3,000 visits. So the number of increase has been a real focus, and credit to, like I say, the prevention team, but also our response colleagues in terms of delivering that. It's a huge amount of people's homes that we are going over that doorstep and making sure they're safe.
I'm sure someone would have worked a percentage out as to what it is at the population of Nottinghamshire. I mean, it's not insignificant, is it?
No, it's not. It's a significant body of work.
Do we compare ourselves to other authorities?
Yes, we do.
Yes, the inspectorate do that for us as well. So I think it's fair to say we were identified as requiring improvement with our first inspection, and we were in that bottom quartile in terms of output. We're not at the top level in terms of the country because, like Tom highlighted, we're not just doing numbers. We're making sure that they're really targeted as well. So there are some services delivering over 20,000 safe and well visits. There are some services a lot bigger than ourselves as well. But proportionately, in terms of the risk balance of the people we're attending and also the size of our organisation, we're very much in that top quartile now in the country.
Moving the right way.
Good question. So with regards to the safe and wellness visits, are you proactive in terms of who you visit, or is it people that come?
No, so we have a balance. So we have a referral system on our website, so people can self-refer in themselves or their family members or people they're concerned about, and they are triaged, and we would allocate them according to risk. We also work significant, as I'll come on to later in the report. We really do try to proactively get the information about people who may be at risk, and we train a significant number of partner agencies around who are going into people's homes themselves in terms of care providers who, if they recognise vulnerability, they refer those individuals on with consent to us, and we will then make contact and do a safe and well visit. So we are, and even now we're always looking for how we can improve that targeting, how we can improve the intelligence we use. We focus a lot on post-incident visits as well. So if someone has an incident, even albeit minor, we will look to see if they want fire safety advice in the home. So it's a fundamental part of our work every single day across the entire county. I think there's always improvements we can make, and I think that referral process, we're doing a lot of work, or starting to do some more work with health partners to see, that if we can improve that targeting post-hospital, and certainly through GP surgeries, for example. But it's a significant portion of our work.
Brilliant, thank you.
Basically answered that. I was going to ask a similar question. Self-referrals, inter-agency and vulnerability referrals. Fantastic.
I think to answer that point, if you look just at 2.28, in terms of those local statutory coordination groups, it gives you the sort of variety of groups we engage with. And since the restructure of the team, we've released some capacity within the team to be a real on the forefront of that. And also with our response station managers, they go to the community safety partnership meetings to enable that work to happen. So if I can draw attention to 2.25, so following the prevention restructure, the introduction of the persons at risk team case officer role has enabled improved quality assurance and continuity of attendance at high-risk review group, multidisciplinary team meetings and district hoarding panels. It has also ensured that there is engagement with the relevant partnerships in both the city and county to ensure appropriate learning engagement with serious adult reviews, domestic homicide reviews and child death reviews. And just as a case in point, following a recent DHR, we've made some quite significant improvements to our threat of arson policy in terms of how we respond to those threats of arson in conjunction with our police colleagues, to make that a much more targeted and speedy response when needed, to ensure, to maximise people's safety in the home. So 2.26, so following the establishment of the new team, changes have been made to the way that safeguarding concerns are shared, managed and referred onwards within the service. So this has delivered improvements in the quality and understanding of these from our response colleagues. While some referrals could still be improved, we have got a training package in development to address this. So safeguarding is a fundamental part of what the community safety engagement team does. I've covered 2.28. If I move you on then, please. So there's quite a bit I'm going to miss.
Yeah, back on 2.8, can you just explain the links here, for example, with these the Tobacco Control Alliance? How would that fit into the referral systems, etc.?
So it's a partner agency, so we would be an active participant in that meeting, because where there may be elements of criminality, there may be vulnerability. People will have information that we can link into to see who we can help.
I think with that one as well, it's the tobacco control one's a really good example. So you might see that as an enforcement approach, and trading standards, something that go into shops and selling illegal tobacco and work with that. Well, actually, it's also around safe smoking and making sure that we can highlight through our prevention activity the dangers of smoking illegal cigarettes or misappropriate use of them. And then that also goes into vaping and disposable vapes. And this is where whilst the prevention team focus on fire safety, it's a really broad approach in terms of how to engage with that.
I feel you're hitting a brick wall with that, though, the sort of person that buys illegal vapes, the illegal tobacco.
It's a constant challenge.
Yeah.
It definitely is. I think the legislation changes, and often the societal trends change far quicker than legislation, and we see that not only with smoking things like that, but like e-bikes and e-scooters and the dangers around those. And there's loads of work that the proactive sort of behind the scenes work that Tom's team do with trading standards, with national bodies in terms of that work and the study around those and risks that are present. So it's a good example because it just shows that multi-pronged approach. And if we also, if we have an unfortunate circumstance where we have somebody die in a fire, and we work through to find out what the most likely cause of that was, and then that also feeds back in. So illegal cigarettes don't normally self-extinguish like others do, so therefore that can be a cause of fire in the home. So there's loads of different ways that we work together just to make sure we're doing everything we possibly can collectively to keep people safe.
I imagine modern slavery is mainly around accommodation, where these things take place, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do, in the city recently, we've been part of multi-agency raids where they go into properties. That's around safeguarding the individuals who are in there. If somebody is engaged with illegal activity, their fire safety precautions are not normally top of their priority either, so we work around those. And then we also make sure around educating people that live in above premises and things like that as well. So again, all of these, we make sure we have a presence there. That's only a small sort of example really. I mean, there's literally hundreds of groups that we're working with to make sure we operate there.
Thank
you. Okay. So if I can move you on to, I'm going to move on to 2.30, which just I wanted to highlight some of the some of the work the team undertakes. And while I'm not going to read each bullet point, you can see we are trying very hard to interact with the community at every available opportunity. We certainly would appreciate all the help you can give as councillors in terms of that, in terms of publicising our work and making sure that we can access these individuals. And at 2.31, we're talking here around our positive action work for our recruitment processes, so that's across for our whole-time positions, for our on-call positions, for the wider service as well, so for those non-operational roles. So we're really trying to get into as diverse groups of people as possible in order to improve our recruitment and improve the numbers of people that apply for our positions. So whilst I won't read those bullet points out, is there anything you want to ask before I move on in those? Brilliant. So coming back to a bit more performance at 2.34, so one of our sort of flagship events is Safety Zone, where we interact with multi-agency partners to deliver safety messages to young people, and we have managed to deliver 3,217 year 5 and 6 pupils during April 24 to March 25, so a significant number of young people we've engaged with. The increase was made possible by a dedicated grant from the Office of the Police and Crime Commissioner for additional provision in Newark. And the team also took on the chairing of the Nottingham Safety Education Partnership to improve the delivery and evaluation of safety zones for the forthcoming year, bringing partners from the Canal and Moorsight Trust and updating the risky room delivered by Nottingham Rescue Service. That's a room that has hazards in it, like overloaded sockets, for example. And just in terms of the last 2 points, fire investigations are delivered, managed and coordinated as part of the community safety and engagement team, working closely with the police crime scene investigation team. In 24-25, 96% of Tier 2 fire investigations undertaken by Nottinghamshire Fire and Rescue Service personnel were against a 90% target that we have of our own individuals undertaking those. With the remaining investigations were delivered by fire service personnel from neighbouring counties as part of our long-standing reciprocal regional working agreement. And after more serious incidents where a fire investigation report was required for His Majesty's Coroner, 100% of these detailed reports were delivered within the timescales required by the Coroner's Office. So a significant amount of work goes into each fire investigation report for those fire fatalities. It's a significant undertaking.
Is that grant ongoing? Or was it a one-off?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, just excuse me. I didn't see that.
Yeah, it's okay. So Sabina and then Jim.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to say, you said like you work with the primary school children, but what about secondary school? You haven't done any work with them?
Yes, we do secondary school. We still have a programme of school visits. We work on road safety engagements.
Because they need more, isn't it, the secondary school, because the children go by themselves to schools mostly. So I think they need more probably
I can read some
session.
more detail in a future report if you wish.
Please.
To highlight that.
Thank you.
I'll make a note of that.
Sorry, I didn't see you.
That's all right, Jim.
Yeah, my question is that grant. I mean, that seems really tasty. I mean, is that ongoing or was it a one-off?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay.
I imagine it was a one-time grant, but I will find out.
Okay, thank you.
And also there may be other grants available from wherever for such work. Okay. Just a general point here, and you've heard this before so many times, bearing in mind we've got quite a lot of new members, but also for older members, we need to be careful not to fall too much into the abbreviations letters, because no matter how many times we hear what they mean, sometimes we're rapidly flicking through the pages to see what those four letters mean.
Apologies. At fire services, we are good at abbreviations.
Well,
Please tell me.
No, be assured, it's not just you, it's local authorities everywhere, but it's just, I'm conscious of the fact that sometimes people don't want to think, I don't want to ask what that means, because I mean, there's no such thing as a silly question, but humans are human, and we just need to keep it simple, I think is what we're saying. But that's a really good report, though, really interesting.
Fantastic. I move on to
so
fire
if you go on to, yes please. Yes.
So obviously fire protection is our fire protection department concerned with fire safety in non-domestic premises. So 2.37, the completion of 2,000 fire safety audits in 24-25 was a community risk management plan commitment, increasing from 1,500 in 23-24. So in the reporting period of this report, the service has completed 236 fire safety audits, which is a 4% increase against the same period last year, and 1,110 in total for the year to date 24-25. So moving on to 2.38, we did not meet our target under the Community Risk Management Plan for our fire safety audits. And we have reported on this to members previously. They are the allocation of our resources to the Building Safety Regulator, the ongoing requirements for our fire safety inspectors to attain the necessary qualifications to upskill them in line with the National Fire Chiefs Council competency framework, and long-term sickness within the team has resulted in reduced capacity. Also, as the team has got more involved and has taken a much more proactive approach to investigation, we are seeing a lot more investigations being undertaken, and they are taking a significant amount of time within the team. So I can assure members at 2.39 that the necessary resources and oversight is being put into place to ensure that the refreshed targets contained in our Community Risk Management Plan for 25 to 28 are realistic, achievable, and represent an increased level of performance. But I can expand on that if anyone has a question.
Yeah. Anyone have any? No?
2.40, our risk-based inspection programme, so another acronym, apologies, the RBIP continues to be utilised to ensure our highest risk buildings in Nottinghamshire are inspected in line with the timescales set out within it. So following His Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabulary and Fire and Rescue Services report, a refreshed policy has been developed to explicitly set out the parameters used to drive the services activities in this area. And as part of the services work to resolve the area for improvement identified by HMIC FRS concerning our risk-based inspection programme, our refreshed document has undergone peer review and will be evaluated by an independent consultant in Q2 of 25-26. At 2.41, the completion of 1,500 business safety checks in 24-25 was a key CRMP commitment. In total, in 24-25, the service has completed 1,546 business safety checks, meeting the set target, with 365 of these being completed within the reporting period of this report. So business safety checks are slightly different to fire safety audits. Business safety checks are undertaken by our response crews who are trained by the fire protection team to go into the, and I don't want to use the lower risk premises identified in our risk-based inspection programme that the inspectors, the fire safety inspectors, would not generally inspect because they are more concerned with the higher risk premises. And the business safety checks have proven to be a very successful undertaking, highlighting a significant amount of fire safety concerns in the community. And in exactly the sort of premises that perhaps we weren't inspecting previously. So you're talking single sort of shop takeaways with sleeping above in particular. That seems to be a significant concern. And those, once the crews highlight those outcomes, that then passes to our fire safety inspectors, and that extra body of work that's generated by response crews has had an impact on the other audits that our fire safety inspectors can do. But it's a really effective and positive outcome for communities, because we are seeing fire safety breaches across a large number of premises, and we are intervening to make them safer.
So now, do we announce all of these, or are they random? In terms of when we go to visit premises, would it be helpful just to sort of explain how we select them?
So they are selected. So the risk-based inspection programme is essentially a massive spreadsheet in very simplistic terms, and I don't want to belittle the work that's gone into it. So it's just a lot of premises. We assign them scores against their risk. So if we've had a previous fire, if they are subject to different legislation such as the control of major accident hazards legislation, if they have a poor rating, if they're a care home, they have a poor rating from the Care Quality Commission, for example, we would score that higher, because if they have a poor rating from the Care Quality Commission, it's likely that their fire safety measures will not be as good, without wishing to generalise. So they would, and that spreadsheet then, you add up those scores across multiple factors, put out a number, and we pick the highest ones for inspection in a 2-year cycle, which our fire safety inspectors will do. At the other end of that spreadsheet are your single takeaways with sleeping above, which would have a low score, which we pass on to our response crews. Those premises are sent letters, so they're aware that we're coming. And the response crews will turn up, and the same with fire safety inspectors. They will make contact with the responsible persons from those premises in order to book a time. So we don't turn up unannounced generally, and sometimes there's always breakdowns in communication, but our fundamental process is that this is a consent a partnership. We work with responsible people to improve fire safety.
Yeah, so I mean, when you send the letter, can they refuse as well?
No, well, we have. No, essentially, we will always work with people. So if it's not convenient, they can refuse, but we would then come back for another visit. If someone is obstructive, that then raises concerns around what we can find. And we would work with the individual to get into that premises. So, like I say, we are a friendly and approachable service, and we will always work with the individual to get into their premises. But you can't just say no, thank you, it's not for me.
And following on from Samina's question, I was going to ask, what's the notice period that you would give? What's the minimum notice period?
For a business safety check, I think it's 28 days.
So they have a minimum of 28 days.
But I can certainly send you an example letter if you wish to see.
That'd be good.
Yeah, that'd be great.
But what's quite stark is even with that 28 days notice, and even with the engagement with the building owner, we still see a huge amount of fire safety issues. And we work with the regulators code, so that always means that in the first instance we'll always work with the building owner, firstly to make sure people are safe, but it's also to improve the situation. Where we don't get that engagement, we would then have an escalation process all the way through to prosecution. And just last week, we had a successful prosecution against a building owner, business owner in the north of the county who just would not engage with us, who actually physically ripped up the enforcement notice in front of our inspection officers and said, "You don't have any jurisdiction over me." And that went through all the way to court, where we do have a 100% record in terms of our prosecutions, thanks to the team that Tom leads. Because if it gets to that stage, and it's a minority, but if it gets to that stage, we've done absolutely everything in our power to work with them and improve things before we get to that prosecution stage.
What's the actual, what is it they're actually charged with?
So breaches of the fire safety regulations. So we operate under the Regulatory Reform Order, which is a statutory instrument which allocates to Fire Authority as the regulator for fire safety in Nottingham and Nottinghamshire. And then that's why it's progressed.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Okay, and Jim? I have had many linguistic problems, language translation.
Yeah, so we have a really good proactive work. So we have language line, but then we're also quite lucky to have a number of staff who speak different languages. So we've done proactive work. Along with the enforcement work, we do proactive work to engage with communities, and we recently had events both in Nottingham in Hyson Green, but also in Mansfield. Mansfield particularly working with the Turkish community, and we had a Turkish translator to go around with us and help work with some of the businesses along with the bid team from Mansfield. And we have a whole different range of opportunities. We provide literature in different languages as well for people who don't have English as a first language. We also have the language line, and that also crosses across into our response work as well in our control room. We've recently run an exercise that Tom Staples coordinated that tested that and make some improvements. We continue to try and improve in that area, but it does mean that we can cater for everybody in their mother language, really, to make sure that we can communicate effectively with them.
Is that impacting in a big way on budget?
No, it's part of our continued budget that we run, built into our revenue work. It's something that we've proudly had for a number of years. It's really an integral part of our working. And then also in terms of proactive engagement, we utilise the other networks that are out there. So we work with the big teams, business development teams in different areas. We utilise the skills of our staff who are multilingual as well. We've also got a community advisory group which is set up, and people from all different communities across Nottingham and Nottinghamshire that help us help inform our approach.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
So just reinforcing what I've said just previously at 2.42, within the reporting period report, 51 poor outcomes reported by response groups from those safe checks, which is a 143% increase against the same period last year. So you see in the work that's been done out in the community. Again, a few performance figures for assurance and scrutiny in terms of knowing that the department's working as hard as it can. 2.45. Again, some bullet pointed ones there. I think the things I would like to draw attention to are the follow-up inspections that we undertake that really take a significant amount of the team's time, and that's following up to inspections for non-statutory notice, like under sleeping risk premises, or follow-up inspections for our enforcement notices, which is our statutory and our most serious breaches of fire safety legislation. So they really take a significant amount of the team's time. And just something that when Damien was talking, as we were talking about that journey to prosecution, the team, if we do encounter those responsible people that don't want to engage, the team are undertaking the level of seriousness. They're undertaking their interviews under PACE, so the Police and Criminal Evidence Act. And those can take a whole day for 2 inspectors as they interview responsible people under that legislation. And obviously, just again, I'd draw attention to 2.46, which is talking about the prosecution that Damien just mentioned. So if I move on to 2.47, which is around our efforts to reduce demand. So during the reporting period of this report, the service has responded to 1,217 false alarms, which is a 6% increase on the same period last year. And we break our false alarms down into 3 categories. You can see there: false alarm malicious, which obviously malicious; good intent, where someone has a genuine belief there is a fire; and then apparatus, false alarm apparatus calls, or initiated by a fire alarm operating or an alarm operating a person then routinely calls the fire and rescue service as part of a standing arrangement, i.e. with no judgment involved and there was no further fire and rescue service action required. We classify these incidents as our unwanted fire signals. And obviously We will send appliances to these incidents, which ties up resources, removes their availability from attending potential other incidents, takes away their capacity for community safety and engagement, their protection activities. So it's a key thing we want to drive down. So the community risk management plan at 2.48.
Just on that point, on the, I mean, I'm sure we all get very frustrated and furious, don't we, when we read about the malicious calls. Is there any action we take or can take or
yes.
do take?
Yes, so we have, again malicious calls have, I can find some more in-depth figures if you wish, but malicious calls have dropped from previous years gone past as call targeting has become, we can identify phone numbers straight away, they come up in control, we can work with agencies to see who that number belongs to, and if they repeatedly make malicious calls, we can block the number. And again, so they are an irritant, they are something that happens, but it's not a massive drain on our resources, and we will work with the police to identify and educate those individuals.
Yeah, I was going to say that you said you had increased this year, isn't it, to previous year? Those increase, is it like some the false alarm as well, or was it like a genuine
increase in false alarms?
Yeah, no, not false. Like you had an increase previous year to this year on call like alarm.
Yes,
I mean, do you have like some data? Was it like genuine one or the false?
No, so obviously false alarms. So 1,217 false alarms in this report compared to the same reporting period last year. It's a 6% increase.
Yes, in the false one, yeah.
That whether that is statistically significant, they do vary. As I come on to further in the report, we are seeing an increase nationally in false alarm calls as the built environment increases. Alarm systems are put in place. Building regulation is very strict around what alarms need to go into these commercial premises, non-domestic premises. That is a national increase, which is why it's such a focus to try and reduce them. But yeah, they have increased in this reporting period.
We traditionally do see a lot of false alarms from large premises like hospitals,
schools and things. Yeah,
we do try and work really closely with, particularly the big buildings, if you like, where repeat alarms come in, to drive those numbers down. But it's a constant battle, Councillor.
And I might answer your point, Councillor, that following on from that, we at 2.49 we will work with those owners around. If they have a false alarm, they receive a letter from us straight away outlining their responsibilities. A fourth occurrence, the premises is contacted by our business education advocate, and a sixth occurrence comes a full audit from the fire safety inspector. So apologies jumping in.
Do you have to attend every false alarm? So for example, false alarm comes in, or somebody reports a fire, and then 2 minutes later they phone back saying no, it's a false alarm. Do you still have to attend?
So we were one of the first fire rescue services in England to introduce a call challenging policy. So we won't attend an alarm now. If you are in an occupied building like this, the alarm goes off. In days gone by, and some services still do, would automatically send fire appliances. Our control operators would now say, well, is there anyone sleeping? Is there any risk here? They would know the premises, and they would say, well, is there any sign of smoke? Can somebody go and check it? And it's our responsibility, and every business owner's responsibility, to have a suitable fire warden in place, suitable fire training in place, so they can go and check it. So if it's an occupied premises that is classified as low risk, we would call challenge. So we don't attend all of those, and we keep a record of the incidents we don't attend. We then also, if we do mobilise, we now mobilise with just one fire engine as standard. Now there are certain premises, certain types of buildings that we will send more resources to an alarm, but as standard we'll attend with one appliance. And we do ask the caller that if they go and check and it says there's a system fault, then to bring us back. Having said that, the reason we focused on this so much is that we have seen this increase nationally around the number of false alarms, unwanted fire signals that result in false alarms. So one of the recommendations of this report is that we will bring back a further report that focuses just on this area, because Tom's team are doing so much work, and the data and the annual increases do not reflect the amount of hard work and effort that's going into trying to reduce them. But we still need to go. There's an old adage that the only false alarms you attend, you never go to a false alarm, you only come away from one. But there are definite areas where we can work better with local or businesses, where businesses need to take more responsibility about mobilising or requesting us in the first place with that. So one of the recommendations, Chair, is that we will bring back a detailed report around our unwanted fire signal strategy to present to members, because over the last 12 or 18 months we've been talking about this. Members have brought forward ideas such as we can introduce call challenging, call charging, so if people keep calling us out to unwanted fire signals which turn out to be false alarms, some services do have a charging mechanism in place, but there's lots of it needs to be a multi-pronged approach around making sure we've got
All right, thank you.
So, okay, my question been answered. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so at 2.48, Community Risk Management Plan in 22-25 sets a target of 3% reduction in our unwanted fire signals. So within the reporting period of this report, the service responded to 701 unwanted fire signals, which is an increase of 1 compared to the same period last year. And of these, 149 were at non-residential premises, with 80 at hospitals, and 552 were at residential premises.
80 at hospitals? Oh, wow.
That's across all our hospitals across the county. So, but they present a significant risk as buildings, and obviously, in terms of the economy and society, if anything were to happen. So obviously we do mobilise those. 2.50, Damien has just covered, and then good news at 2.51 that we managed to we set a target of reduction of unwanted lift rescues, and we achieved that in our
It's good news for everyone.
It is. At 2.52, I'm just going to talk about the Joint Audit and Inspection Team. So I just want to bring members' attention to the Joint Audit Inspection Team. Now this is the JATE, apologies for another. This is a collaboration between Nottingham City Council and the Fire Service, and over this report we conducted 28 inspections, 9 audits and 12 follow-up inspections in the period covered within this report. It does represent an increase in outputs by the time, and is now in line with the expectations we have with that team. As previously reported at 2.53, there are 122 premises on the JATE audit list that are prioritised for inspection. So those buildings on the Joint Audit Inspection Team list are the highest risk premises within the city, essentially. So they are the highest, the tallest cladding, ones that have significant fire safety issues, and we have a joint approach under the Regulators Code to have a joined up approach with our council colleagues. So if we do need to work with the responsible person, we are doing it under one legislation rather than two, and have single timelines, a single point of contact to make it easier and more effective. Moving on to 2.54, so the Building Safety Regulator. The Building Safety Act received Royal Assent during 23-24, and the Building Safety Act has seen the creation of the Building Safety Regulator, with the Health and Safety Executive being appointed to lead on the regulation of new and existing buildings which fall within scope. So 2.56, the multidisciplinary teams follow a regional model whereby Nottinghamshire Fire and Rescue Service supports the Building Safety Regulator through the provision of one of our fire safety inspectors. Home Office funding is being drawn down to recoup the costs associated with the secondment of the fire safety inspector into this role. Moving on to 2.58 from the Manchester Arena Inquiry. Of the 149 recommendations made in the Manchester Arena Inquiry Volume 2 report, it was identified that 53 were relevant to the fire sector. The National Fire Chiefs Council endorsed the 53 recommendations to ensure a national approach to learning for the sector. It is of note, however, that many of these recommendations require a collective multi-agency approach for the recommendations to be completed, as opposed to being an improvement area which is led by a fire and rescue service and can be solely delivered by that service. So at 2.61, of those 53 recommendations, as of April 2025, 50 have been completed and 3 are in progress but are now overdue. And moving on to 2.62, the 3 remaining recommendations are reliant on input and improvement from partner agencies before they can be completed. These actions are being monitored through the local resilience forum by a dedicated Blue Light user group. This group is responsible for coordinating the adoption of multi-agency learning following events such as Manchester Arena and Grenfell Tower. The outstanding actions do not have a predicted completion date at this time.
I mean, it looks a bit bad for us, but it's not because of us, is it? You're waiting for the input from the other agencies. Are we able to exert pressure on them, for want of a better word?
Absolutely. So within the Local Resilience Forum, that's all of the Category 1 and 2 responders across city and county. I'm the vice chair of that, with the Chief Constable being the chair of that. It is very scrutinised at those meetings. In terms of the subgroups as well, the Blue Light User Group, we have really strong representation there. I think it comes down to capacity and prioritisation from other agencies. However, the completion of the 50 actions, I think it is credit to the people that have been involved in it. Yeah. Those 3, though, they're not just going to go away. We will continue to monitor them. We'll continue to report back to members to make that progress, and we'll continue to exert what effort we can in terms of through the Local Resilience Forum to make sure that they are completed. They're not just going to disappear on a shelf. We'll make sure we continue that focus.
And would this be the same sort of pattern around the rest of the country? Are the other fire authorities having the same sort of...
Yes, yeah. There's different progress. I think in terms of the completion of the ones that we have sort of autonomy over, we are ahead of the curve in our response back to National Fire Chief Council. We are one of the higher performing organisations in terms of completion, and not all services are where we are. We start off at a good level because of the work that we do in terms of that multi-agency response, and particularly preparation for terrorist type incidents. But yeah, there's outstanding elements across the country in terms of that, but progress continues to be made against all of them.
Do you? Yep. So do you have a separate heading for things like civil unrest, terrorist incidents, etc.?
Yeah, so we have both through the Local Resilience Forum, we have preparation for that, but we also have our own internal, it's called a National Interagency Liaison Lead, so NILO. That role looks at our pre-planning, our response, and then also our debriefing and learning from those incidents. So we do a lot of exercising in that sort of arena to make sure we're ready, multi-agency exercises and strategic and tactical level exercises as well. So absolutely, we do a lot of preparation around that type of incident.
And just to finish, as I'm sure you'll be happy about that, just moving on to our remediation acceleration plans. So 2.63 since the announcement by the Deputy Prime Minister of the remediation acceleration plans and their coordination through regional mayors. Nottingham Fire and Rescue Service remediation team have been fully engaged with the East Midlands Combined County Authority in preparation of these plans. So at 2.65, the service has worked closely with the Mayor's Office, and a remediation acceleration plan for the East Midlands has been approved by MHCLG. This will result in additional resources within Nottinghamshire Fire and Rescue Service to undertake inspections of buildings with cladding, namely 3 dedicated posts supported through initial 12-month funding. And I know from working with that group that as a fire and rescue service and as a region, we are well ahead of the curve in terms of our response to that. So I think members can hopefully draw assurance from that.
That's good. Yeah, very much so. Nick?
Yeah, thanks for that. There's some good news in terms of the JATE inspections and various other safe and well visits. Some really good news here. Mm-hmm. I'm just thinking also this is welcome in terms of funding. I'm just wondering, in terms of, when we do inspections or we talk about those, whatever, 100 and so buildings, that 122, sorry, on the JATE that are dangerous, and then look at some of them cladding. How do we engage with residents? How do people know? Say, for example, you wanted to purchase a flat or you want to rent a flat in Nottingham City, and we've got increasing amounts of high-rise that are like that. I mean, are people aware of it? Is it something you get... I've seen sometimes you get certificates and you're saying the cladding is safe, but more often than not, you don't. And then, in terms of this, you've got to be concerned about who's going to meet the cost, because some residents could be coming in for huge bills, couldn't they? I don't know if we know the answers to that outside of our...
Yeah, I can touch on that. So the responsibility sits with the building owner or the business owner. So they have to carry out a fire risk assessment, same as anybody, the people who own this building, anybody else. They have to carry out a fire risk assessment, and then part of that they have to communicate that with their residents. So where we find the presence of flammable cladding, that has to be captured on a fire risk assessment that needs to be communicated with their residents. It is well publicised and well known around the issues that have been present in terms of the remediation around cladding, and under the work of the current government, that prioritisation in terms of addressing all buildings over 11 metres now. So that's the work that Tom refers to, and that's been coordinated by the Mayor for the East Midlands Clare ward. So we're working closely with that. Where we, as an authority, act is that if we are carrying out enforcement action or we're working on a building, we also try and link that in with our prevention work. So Tom oversees prevention and protection, and it means that we can go and do proactive engagement with people around that. We have a dedicated place on our website as well around information for people in high-rise buildings, because that's predominantly where flooding issues occur. In terms of the remediation funding, there is a designated pot for that now. We're working closely with Homes England under MHCLG around making sure that building owners can follow the correct pathways to access funding for remediation, and that the hope of that is that it alleviates some of the pressure on particularly leaseholders, but also tenants and people within those buildings that have that present. So there's a lot of work to do. We're very, very much at the start of this journey. The government aspiration is to have the buildings within that remediation programme by 2029. There are significant demands to achieve that, but we're doing everything we can to play the part. We play quite a small but key part in that work.
Yes, okay, so it'd be the leaseholders, wouldn't it, then, effectively? They are technically responsible for it in terms of informing people. Okay, thank you.
Okay, right. Any other questions on that? Or it is comprehensive, isn't it? There is a lot to it. Thank you. So thank you, colleagues, for that. That's genuinely really helpful. And just going back to the recommendations, I mentioned them earlier on, but just for the record, they're on page 18. I think it's fair to say we have scrutinised and drawn assurance from the provision of service delivery. That's what we're here to do, and thank you for that. We've referred to the agreed to receive a focus report on the unwanted fire signals, which we've discussed a little bit, but more to come. And we've discussed the Manchester Arena recommendation. So are we all... Oh, Jim.
If you finish, can I just ask the guys there?
Well, just before, is it about the recommendations?
No, it's a question.
Well, let's just formalise. Are we all happy with the recommendations? Yeah, we're agreeing with that. So, Jim.
Yeah, if you had a wish list, a birthday list of some sort, as to what we as councillors could do, apart from money, because obviously we have an input to that. We're just the eyes and ears at the moment of the public independently looking at the service. But is there anything that we as councillors, if you could ask us, could do for you? What would it be?
I think for myself, and I'll let Tom and Tom answer for themselves, but I think for ourselves and the things that we've discussed today, that local engagement is really, really positive. So whether that's around on-call recruitment, whether that's around engagement with businesses, whether that's around awareness of vulnerable people in the community, being able to think about fire, what we find time and time again, whether it's around recruitment, whether it's around awareness of the broad range of work that we do that we've touched on today, or whether it's around business safety or fire safety or work in those things, there's a real lack of awareness around the fire service. Thankfully, a lot of people in society, in our communities, don't need to access us, and they only access us when they ring those 3 9s in a day of an emergency, and we will always prioritise our response to those incidents. But you can see from the reports that Tom and Tom have presented the really broad range of work that we do, and I think councillors' engagement locally, that raising of awareness with your colleagues, because there's only the 6 of us in this committee, only the 18 on the authority, raising of that awareness with your colleagues, but also with your communities will be, I think, one of the greatest things that we find support from members, I think.
Good, thank you. Which leads us on to, because that's the final formal item on the agenda, but Damien, you wanted to perhaps say a few words about induction and
yeah, absolutely.
Just finish the meeting.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. We'll formally. Sorry, yes. So we'll formally close the meeting. What time is it? 14 minutes past 11.